live on YouTube. We are live. Hi, everyone. Will Critchlow here again, founder and CEO at SearchPilot, and we're going to be talking about quite a range of things today, but also quite a lot about googlebot, which is very much in my geeky sweet spot of SEO things. Many of you may know I run a little hobby website called realrobotstxt.com, which is all about understanding how googlebot interprets robots.txt files and how you can control the crawling of things based on, since Google open sourced its robots.txt parser. And yeah, I'm always open for a bit of nerd sniping when it comes to how googlebot works. So I'm going to be talking a fair bit today about googlebot, but yeah, the main thing was just getting live on time. I think we're just coming up to the time I said that we'd be going live, so hopefully folks are joining the broadcast now. For future reference, you can join either on Twitter, LinkedIn, both me at Will Critchlow on either, or on the SearchPilot YouTube channel, and we stream on all those places, or you can catch the recording afterwards on, again, any of those places. So yeah, hi, Will Critchlow here again. I'm going to be talking today a fair bit about googlebot, covering the ways that we measure googlebot activity at SearchPilot and how we use it in test analysis. But also I've been interested this week in some new googlebot news. We've seen some clarifications around how the new Google extended robots.txt directives work. Google extended is the identifier for Google's crawl activities, supporting what they're now calling Gemini. It used to be Bard, so that's the large language model generative AI product from Google, as well as some of their other AI and ML tools. And we've now learned that it's not a separate crawler. So you'll see the regular googlebot user agent in your log files. And that's kind of like how googlebot news works. So it crawls using the regular googlebot user agent that you'd be expecting, but you can deal with it separately in robots.txt and give directives differently for Google Extended compared to other googlebots or all googlebots. And the interesting thing here is that it doesn't really control crawling, as far as I can tell. And it's more focused on inclusion. And this, as I said, this is how googlebot news works. It used to be that there was a separate googlebot news crawler, and you could block that crawler in robots.txt separately to web crawling googlebot. And it took me many years after they changed this, like 2011, I think they changed this, they changed to use the main web crawler to gather news as well, which makes perfect sense. There's no need to duplicate the crawling of these pages, which are, for the most part, just web pages anyway, right? But weirdly, they kept this directive in robots.txt. So you can still control googlebot news separately, but what you're actually controlling is inclusion in googlebot news, rather than crawling by the googlebot crawler. And I really don't love this mixing of metaphors. I think it would be nice if either you didn't do both these things in robots.txt and robots.txt was purely a crawling control mechanism, or if they do want to control inclusion, I would rather it was actually a different directive rather than disallow and allow. I'd rather that was kept to literally this user agent will or won't hit your website on these pages. I don't love it, but what can you do? I don't imagine Google's going to change these things just for me. So this is how it is. So as I said, googlebot news works this way. If you block regular googlebot, that will block actual visits of the spider, and you won't see them in your log files. Google will not crawl those pages. If you block googlebot news, but allow googlebot, then you will still get those web pages crawled, but they won't be included in Google News. So that's a little bit more like a Google News specific no index. And my understanding is that this is how this new Google extended user agent for robots.txt is going to work. Again, I think it should be googlebot extended, but nobody's listening to me, are they? So I'm just going to pull up a quick screen share so I can show some of these things in action. Where are we? Okay, so I tweeted about this earlier today and pulled up this snippet, particularly from the documentation. I think that a couple of things are interesting here, and they did explain that it's an inclusion that the user agent string is not a new one. So you will see crawling done with the existing Google user agent. And this is used in what they call a control capacity. So this is about whether they can use the data they gather in this way for the machine learning and AI products, as I understand it. Now, what took me a little while to think about, and I've been trying to get confirmation of, is that they call this a standalone product token. And the word standalone made me think that maybe this wouldn't roll up to obey the main Googlebot directive. So the way that something like Googlebot image works, so the image crawler, is that it obeys the Googlebot image user agent tokens if they exist. If there is nothing that specific, it will obey the Googlebot user agent. Now, these are both listed. So Googlebot News follows Googlebot, Googlebot Image follows Googlebot, same with Googlebot Video follows Googlebot, and they don't say that for Google Extended. Only follows Google Extended. And the implication of this is that it doesn't fall back to following Googlebot. In other words, if you were to block Google, so I've been trying to clarify this with John here. If you were to have a robots.txt file that said Googlebot can't crawl this page, but Google Extended can crawl this page, then I think this will work, and Google Extended will be allowed to use this data from this page. And what that does mean that is you've blocked Googlebot, but you'll see in your log files the regular Googlebot agent. It's very hard to debug, and it's not entirely clear to me how this is really going to work in practice. Anyway, I think that this will fall back and agree with the main Googlebot directive, because I think if you have no mention of Google Extended in your robots.txt file and you block the whole site to all of Googlebot, I think Google Extended will not crawl it. But I think that in order to make that clear, they ought to include it here in the user agent token, just like they do for video, for example. Anyway, so it's going to be interesting if that's not the case, because, and maybe I'll test this at some point, it would be possible if you were to block Googlebot, but still see Googlebot crawling, if it doesn't work that way. So anyway, that's interesting. On a lighter note, while we're talking about generative AI, I was amused this week by a tweet from my old colleague, Rob Ousby, who has been playing with the generative AI prompt, asking it to create an image of a room with no elephants. And this is absolutely wonderful. I really love this. It is completely incapable of following this instruction. This is the result of an image of a room with no robots. It's just wonderful. This one, maybe that's a bit more understandable. At least the robot's outside the window and it's got a cross through it, so fair enough. But I mean, there's literally a robot elephant in the corner. This is amazing, and I think this is my favorite. Just like scatterings of small elephants throughout the room. So maybe they're not coming for all our jobs just yet. But anyway, okay, let's move on from that for now. So we've talked a little bit about Googlebot. We're going to talk more in a minute, and we've talked a bit about AI. On a completely different subject, I often in these sessions talk a little bit about things that I've been reading, watching, or learning from. And one of the things that I've been paying attention to this week was I listened to an interview with Brian Halligan, the HubSpot co-founder, and I'm in awe of what the folks at HubSpot have built. Brian and Dharmesh as the founders, and obviously the broader team there as well. And Brian recommended this case study, Harvard Business School HBR case study. It's called, if you go and look it up, it's called HubSpot Inbound Marketing and Web 2.0. Though, as he said, I think the title is a bit misleading or not very helpful. It's not that new. This is from 2011. So this is well before HubSpot was the behemoth of a company that it is today. But it's really interesting insight into some of the challenges they face, the way they work through those things. You do have to buy this case. It's if you Google the title, you'll find it on the HBR website. You do have to pay, forget $10 or so for it. But I find these things really interesting. And so I'm recommending it on to you. It was something that I came across this week and found interesting, and I'm still working my way through it. So maybe I'll have more to say about that in future weeks. But another anecdote that Brian Hagen talked about in this interview, which I think I've heard previously either from him or from Dharmesh, was some of HubSpot's early challenges. And you look at HubSpot now, multi-billion-dollar public company, made billionaires with its founders, and you think, well, they never had any really serious problems, did they? They just kind of cruised their way to success. But I don't think things feel like that along the way, and many companies really feel that struggle in the early days. And obviously, part of my role these days is to think about SEO testing, SEO broadly, the work we do at SearchPilot, all of the kind of SEO industry side of things. But the other hat that I wear is as entrepreneur and founder. And I like sharing things that help other founders. And I spend quite a lot of time talking to other founders, understanding the challenges they're going through, mainly so that I can try and make at least different mistakes to the ones they made. And it was quite interesting to me hearing some of the early challenges that Brian was describing at HubSpot, in how very different the challenges are for different businesses. Obviously, very different business models. SearchPilot is much more enterprise focused. HubSpot has stayed fundamentally SMB oriented. And we have very different challenges, but they had huge churn issues in the early days. According as Brian tells it, he told the terrifying story of months with 8% logo churn, and which essentially implies you're going to lose all your customers in a year. And this admittedly was in the depths of the global financial crisis. So even before the Harvard case study was written, we're talking 08, 09. But these crises come around. We operated the agency previously through that era. And of course, we've had the dubious luck of operating SearchPilot through global pandemic. And so you definitely hit these times. But it was interesting just hearing how they iterated and improved against those things. And one of the things that we've just recently started doing at SearchPilot that I've always wanted to do, but I've been, frankly, anxious about doing, mainly just because I didn't want to bug our customers too much, I think, but is doing customer surveys regularly and frequently. So we've finally started a proper NPS and what they call CSAT, customer satisfaction surveying process. And it's been great, actually. I should have done it much sooner. We just recently completed a round of this at SearchPilot and had an amazing plus 70% NPS, which is just incredible. Anybody who has measured NPS for anything, it runs from minus 100% to plus 100%. And anything positive is good. Above kind of 30 is exceptional. And so, yeah, really, really happy with that. And we also asked our customers a product market fit survey question, where we asked, this comes from PMF survey, I think, which is, how would you feel if SearchPilot was no longer available to you or your company? And the benchmark is that if you get anything over 40% saying they would be very disappointed if your product or service was no longer available to them, then that's really good. And we actually had 88% of the respondents to our survey saying they'd be very disappointed if they could no longer use SearchPilot. So that's pretty cool. And obviously one of the reasons I do these kinds of things is to let more folks know about SearchPilot, and the folks who are using it really like it. So if you are in our target market running a large website, then it's worth getting in touch. If you head on over to searchpilot.com/live, you can fill out this form and we'll get in touch to run a demo for you. And there's some useful resources as well that you can read about successes our customers have had, how SEO testing works, and some specific SEO test results. In particular, those customer stories are proving to be super popular. So we've got now in-depth stories about named customers with real data in there, in the travel industry with Skyscanner, in the jobs industry with Stepstone, and in the local and listings kind of website area with KinderCare, which is a childcare provider across the US. So those are really great customer stories with tons of great detail, and yeah, check them out if you haven't already. Okay, back to the HubSpot side of things. I also shared, since I last did one of these, this it's called the Big Cheat Code, which is a partnership between HubSpot and I think with LinkedIn as well, and yeah, collaboration with LinkedIn. And they released this video episode with my old friend Rand Fishkin, who was previously, many SEO folks will know him as the founder of Moz, previously SEO Moz, and now the founder of SparkToro. And the big cheat code that he talks about in this video is that, well, I kind of think there's two things. It kind of all relates to the fact that when you're doing things the first time, you have very little clue what you're doing. And that applies as much to starting a business as it does to anything else in life. And he's finding, running SparkToro, that he is learning many things that he wants to do differently compared to how he ran things at Moz. The big thing, which he's written about in his book Lost and Founder as well, and talked about in many places, is the funding model, and how he didn't want to build a venture-backed startup in his second company, and that he sought alternative models for that. We also are not venture-backed at SearchPilot, and we've taken a slightly different route. So SparkToro raised money from angels, and he's talked about their funding model. We've actually bootstrapped SearchPilot, so we funded it ourselves out of the agency in the early days, and then spun out of the agency in early 2020 with support from Brain Labs. But we're back now to fully bootstrapped and independent. And I think that's really important, because I just want to tell these stories as well, that I think it's important that folks know that these other models are available, and that there are ways of building businesses that aren't small chance of massive success or very large chance of complete failure. And the thing that I think is really important here for our customers is we're sticking around. The SearchPilot has a very high chance of decent to great success, rather than having a VC model, 1 in 1,000 chance of unicorn and all the rest chance in 1,000 of going bust. And so we're here for the long haul. And I think I want to tell that story both for our customers to know that we're sticking around, and we have a very robust cash flow positive business model, but also for other founders to hear that there are alternatives. And I've never raised venture money, but many of my friends have. And all I would say is go into it with your eyes open. I think it is the right funding model for many, including HubSpot, incidentally, who have raised tons of money. But you need to know the game you're playing. And I think it is a game that you absolutely want to only play if you've studied it. And so, Rand's book, Lost and Founder, is a good place. Reading some of the stuff from Dharmesh and Brian is another great place to do that. And just very briefly, totally off topic, but while we're at it, Rand's wife, Geraldine, is an author, and her book is coming out next month. And I'm very much looking forward to If You Can't Take the Heat, as it's called, by Geraldine Dorota. This is her post on Threads, where you can go and find the link and follow it. My wife also has a book out, which you can find on my Twitter profile as well. Anyway, back to on topic. I've spent a lot of time this week reading a lot of things that are internal at SearchPilot, and I often talk on these live streams about things I've been reading, things I've been learning from. And actually, a lot of the things I've learned this week aren't quite ready for external prime time yet. We've got some really exciting work going on and things that we're going to be talking about soon. But I'm going to give you some sneak previews of some of the things that are nearly ready. So one of the things I've been doing this week is talking to our data team about some work that we're doing to dramatically improve the sensitivity of our model. The idea here is that we want to be radically better at having narrower confidence intervals when we're analyzing SEO tests, and able to run better tests and analyze those tests better, so that we can call more winners more quickly, essentially, and have a greater confidence on the uplifts that come from that. And this is just the results of the early, just to be transparent, this is very internal work, and obviously it's not pretty, just the outcome of a book, but Python note. When we're benchmarking on a particular set of tests, on this set of tests we were running over, our old model was able to detect with statistical confidence at 95% confidence level, 13% of them as positive, and our best new model, which is this global 10, is more than twice as good at almost 29%. These two blue bars, incidentally, are basically the same approach, just with global 10 is actually 5 times as much compute power thrown at it as the global model. So it's going to be interesting to see how that scales with even more compute and how it can compare to the other best things that we're working on. But this is really important to our work and to our customers, because obviously the whole point of running tests is to call winners and losers, and the more that we can be confident in those results, the better. The faster we can call those results, the better. And crucially, the more of those results that can be called as positive, then the higher ROI a testing program can have. So that is some quite exciting work that's going on in our data team. I think I've previously given a sneak preview that we have a new deployment model that we're calling Jetstream, which is to deploy into the actual edge network of the CDN. So if you're on Cloudflare, or you're on any other CDN that supports WebAssembly or WASM, as it's snappily titled, then get in touch to talk about SearchPilot on the edge. This has a number of exciting benefits, and in particular, it's going to open up opportunities for deployment with some teams that previously did not have SearchPilot available to them. So yeah, if you're interested in edge worker deployments, then get in touch. And the final bit of like internal sneak preview updates that I was going to talk about this week is that we've been releasing updates to what we call our browser kit technology. So browser kit is the technology that we use to enable flicker-free, non-blocking integration of our tests with client-side JavaScript frameworks. And so we found that many folks are struggling to run SEO tests because their tests are incompatible with things like frameworks like React or Next.js, those kinds of things. And we're now able to run these kind of tests where we have synced up server-side and client-side enhancements to the pages. And what we're seeing here in this little demo video that we're going to release soon is that you can see that architecture books is now appearing in the source code in the H1, but when we refresh the actual website, it flickers and disappears. And this is a very common artifact of what happens when a JavaScript framework is involved and is conflicting with the server-side code that you're trying to modify with a test. And all I'm showing here is that when we turn on our browser kit technology, you can refresh this page, and not only does the change stick, but there's no flicker, there's no visible issue with that as well. So that's pretty cool. And if you've got a heavily client-side rendered website and you're struggling to run SEO tests, then again, give us a shout. So final big topic to talk about today is about googlebot. This is right back to where we started, but I started with news about googlebot coming from Google itself. And what I actually want to talk about today is the way that googlebot analysis interacts with SEO testing, and to what extent it's crucial or not, or the areas where it's important to track googlebot crawling as you run SEO tests. So fundamentally, so this is in the SearchPilot platform. You might have seen this before. This is a test result page. And what we're looking at here, this is just a demo account, by the way, and not actual customer data. It's for a pretend website. Is that what we're seeing here is a statistically significant uplift. So you can see the actual outcome in the pink line beating the forecast outcome in the blue line. Forecast is built off what happened to the control pages, so it takes into account seasonality, site-wide changes, Google algorithm updates, all of those kinds of things. And the reality is beating that forecast, which suggests that our change has made a positive difference compared to the control. And the bottom chart shows the statistical analysis of that same test, and you can see that it's statistically significant at all the levels that we would care about. And the middle line is our best guess of the uplift, and the fan, as we call it, shows the confidence interval on that range. And because the whole fan is above 0, that suggests that we're statistically confident that we have an uplift. And we can do all of this analysis without looking at crawl data at all. And the reason that works, and the reason that's robust, is that because it's a controlled test, an uplift in the variant group compared to the control performance can only happen when a page has been recrawled. And so there is a limitation that is tightly coupled to the crawling, which is that if your pages don't get crawled, there will be no uplift. And to the extent that they haven't been recrawled yet, all of this data wouldn't look like this. These two lines would stay close together. This line would be flat, and the confidence interval would span out and say, look, we don't know. We can't call this. This is an inconclusive test. We can't call this as a winner. So tests that we can call as winners, we can be confident have been recrawled by definition, because they have to be to generate the data that looks like this. So test analysis is robust to recrawl rates in this way. But at SearchPilot, we do track googlebot. We do track crawl data. And we do that because it is helpful in certain other ways. So the primary way that it's helpful is actually to be confident that if a test has turned out inconclusive. So if I just scroll down on this page, we can see our googlebot crawl insights section. And what this shows by default is the percentage of sessions crawled. Now we can just look at raw percentage of pages crawled, but actually sessions, I think, is the more interesting data point. So percentage of pages is just what percentage of pages in the variant group have been crawled at each point during the test. So you can see very quickly we get to high levels of crawl. This is 86% of all pages, and it goes up into the high 90s within a few days. We don't always see this level of crawling, but this is what we're seeing on this particular test. And we can compare that to the control pages if we want to really know the details of what's going on. But actually, I think sessions crawled is the more important metric, which is when you think about these pages that have not been crawled, are they big important pages or are they tiny little pages? And in this case, we can see they're tiny little pages because almost 92% of sessions are landing, even on the first day of this test, are landing on pages that have been recrawled already since the test was launched. So we have these various charts, and we can see the data on this as well, and we can download it as a CSV if we're interested as well. So the reason for running this analysis is if you have a test that is inconclusive, then you might want to say it might be inconclusive because there is genuinely no impact. But the other reason a test could be inconclusive is that it hasn't been fully recrawled yet. And so this is really useful for ruling out that scenario. And that's the big win of tracking googlebot data. And because we're server side, we can see all of these. We effectively get log file access, and so we're able to track the crawling performance and use it in this way. Now, the other thing that I haven't really seen anyone talk about with relation to SEO testing is something we call a cooldown period, which is also another use that googlebot data can be put to, which is less about the specifics of which pages have been recrawled and more about typically how long a site section takes to get recrawled to a sensible level. And this googlebot data gives us that benchmark, and we can assume that this can give us insights not only into how long we need to run a test for, but also into how long it takes things to reset when a test is ended and either rolled out to 100% of pages or back to 0% of pages. In either case, it's unreasonable to wait for 100% of paths to be recrawled, whether you're running a test or whether you're waiting between tests. We typically suggest waiting until 80 to 90% of traffic weighted paths. So this chart here needs to be in the 80 to 90% range. We find that is sufficient. But what it does, the other analysis it leads us to is this idea of a cooldown period. And a cooldown period is saying if you've got a group of pages that and you're changing some subset of those pages to run an SEO test, and you're leaving other pages as the control group, they need to get recrawled to tell the result of that test. And then you roll out that test to either 100% or 0%, and you want them to get recrawled again before you start the next test. And so we call this cooldown period. Typically it's a one week, maybe 2 weeks, sometimes even quicker cooldown for most site sections. Again, we're working generally with large websites that are getting rapidly recrawled. But crucially, by measuring it, we can get greater confidence in our tests because we're confident that we're running tests that are on healthy site sections that have cooled down from the last test. But also we can be sure it's safe to run these tests faster, so we can run more tests in any given time period. And test cadence is a key performance indicator for many of our customers. So this is a really, really powerful use of googlebot data as well. But it's interesting to me. I haven't really seen anybody else talking about cooldown periods, and so it made me think I should cover that. And it's one of the recommendations that our professional services team makes when we're working with a new customer, is to map out site sections, figure out how fast we can run a test, what gap we need to leave before running the next test, and therefore what is our maximum test throughput rate, and how quickly can we run tests. And sometimes you want to subdivide site sections up so that you can run multiple tests in parallel, and all of these things stack up into building an effective test program, which is something that we think about a lot and we talk about a lot at SearchPilot. While I'm here, this is the search results page, the test results page, as I mentioned, and I'm going to give you a sneak preview of something that isn't publicly announced yet, and we haven't put out the full launch announcement. I think I did mention it on a previous live stream, but I don't think anybody's seen it yet, which is, you can just see sneaky in down the bottom here, Google Search Console Insights, which is, as you can see, in beta. And this is, but it's enabled in my account. So let's have a quick sneak preview of this for folks, shall we? As I say, we've soft launched this. A number of our customers have it in their accounts already if they've hooked up Search Console API information, and we're going to be putting out the big public announcement soon. But for you folks on the live stream, let's give you some insights into this. So the reason we've integrated this is we want to be able to explain tests, explain the results of tests. So when a test is statistically significant, whether it's positive or negative, the next question you're most likely to have is, well, why? Did we improve rankings? Did we improve click-through rate? Did we rank for new terms? Those kinds of things. And those are questions that are, we think, best answered with Search Console metrics. And this is where we're using it. There are some limitations to the data, which are covered in the text on here. But this data can be sampled. It doesn't cover every path in the site section. And it is missing a lot of the long tail quite often. So we think it's very dangerous to use this for primary test analysis. We're still using traffic for, is this test a winner or a loser? But what it's really useful for is figuring out why. So this particular dummy test that we've got here, this example test, is an uplift. And we can dig into it here and we can see that the variant pages have, relative to the control pages, improved in rank, remembering that a negative number in a rank change is good. So this is going up the rankings to lower number rankings. So moving from position 3 to position 2 would be -1 in this number. So relatively speaking, the variant pages have improved compared to the control pages. And we've also seen a click-through rate change, again, relatively speaking, between the variant and the control pages. And we can see that illustrated here, that the control pages have changed a tiny bit, and the variant pages have changed significantly in the good direction. And we can see this either as a chart, or we can look at the metrics as a table, and you can pull out those numbers to use in reporting, or we can flip between rank and click-through rate, and we can see the click-through rate numbers as a table, or again in a chart, and we can see not much change in the control and a step in the variant data. And so, as I said, there's some caveats on this. But the biggest caveat is whether we captured enough data. And so what we're also including down here is what we call the data capture summary. And so the simplest one to understand is the path capture rate. And this is very similar to, I explained this with googlebot previously. So this is, of all of the pages that we know got organic traffic in the test period, how many of them show up in the Search Console API data? And the answer is, in this case, about 3/4. We can see that here. Now, actually, in many ways, the more important number is the session capture rate. So this is, of all organic sessions in the time period, what percentage of those landed on pages that show up in the Search Console data? And this is basically skewing or weighting the data by traffic, organic traffic levels. And we can see for this particular test, it's quite a high capture rate. It's almost 95% of all sessions are landing on pages that are visible in Search Console data. And therefore, we think that this is a pretty fair summary of what's going on. And because both have moved in the positive direction, you can see the 2 green arrows, that suggests that this result is quite likely actually due to a ranking improvement, because rankings, of course, improving leads to improved click-through rate. So if we'd seen not really any ranking change, or maybe even a negative ranking change, a bad ranking change, but the click-through rate had improved anyway, that would suggest it was purely a snippet improvement and therefore a click-through rate improvement potentially. And so, yeah, we're hoping that this is useful. We've got a bunch of documentation to help folks interpret this data, but it's in beta right now. It's probably going to change how it looks, but we're showing it to my customers and seeing how they use it. And I'm quite excited to get this more explanatory data baked in. And so you'll see this coming to some of our case studies soon. If you're interested in having more information, head on over to searchpilot.com/live. You can get a demo by filling in this form, or if you want to get these test results that I was talking about, you can get access to our back catalog or sign up to the email list, which will get you the new ones sent to you every couple of weeks. And as I said, that's going to start including googlebot data, Search Console data, and tons more in there. And so you can get links to various things that I've talked about today, the customer success stories, how SEO testing works, and our test results. And I will tweet out links to other things I've talked about, whether that's this new Google extended Googlebot user agent, whether it's the HubSpot case study, the video that Rand appeared in, which I make a cameo appearance in as well. And then you can watch this space for some of the more sneak preview type announcements that I've been talking about. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. And as always, it's been great talking to you. My name is Will Critchlow. You can follow me on Twitter at Will Critchlow, on LinkedIn, the same. And this live stream goes out in those two places, as well as on the SearchPilot YouTube channel, which I'm sure all of you are competent enough with Google to find for yourself. All right, take it easy.